I wanted to touch bases, just kind of switch gears a little bit. We've been seeing this weekend a lot of these hostages have now are 50 of them are being returned or have been returned already. We're seeing, it's heart wrenching. You got these young kids, you got parents now getting reunited with their children and
Hmm.
stuff, and the trade 150 prisoners for 50 hostages. And I mean, it boggles the mind. I saw this one announcement, this one reporter who asked someone from the Israeli government, said, "Yeah, but aren't you saying that the amount of worth for Palestinians is less than Israelis because you're giving them 150 for your 50?" And the guy thought the guy was gonna I just almost lost his shit. He goes, "Don't you think we would have done a one-on-one trade? Don't you think we would have wanted to get more people here?" And he goes, how would you even ask this question? And it's just, it goes into what we're seeing in these communities or some of these colleges. We're seeing what's happening out in the street here. It's like, did people forget that, what happened on October 7th and I mean, even Sheryl Sandberg, who's a progressive out there, is just like, can we just put aside everything and just come to just agree that rape is wrong, that how these women were raped, how these women were mutilated, how that is just wrong, that shouldn't be a way in how we act in war or disagreements between governments. And it seems as though I don't understand it, how it's going over people's heads, how people are just saying, well, look at what happened in Gaza before. It's like, look, we can have a discussion there, but what justifies doing what you did?
Yeah. Well, in some ways, I'm completely speechless about all of this because it's just so outrageous. Um, what you said is true. It's a 3-1. Okay, so the ratio of Palestinians being released is 3-1 to hostages being released. That's number one. Number two, you mentioned it. Who's being released for hostages? Women and children. Who's being released for Palestinians? Known terrorists. We're not releasing women and children because we don't capture, the Israelis don't capture women and children. They have known terrorists that are Palestinian that they're releasing. So at a 3-1 ratio, they're releasing 3 terrorists for every one 9-year-old child. Now, if that doesn't, in and of itself, oh, and let's just add something else. Some of these are Israelis that are being released, the hostages. Many of them are from Thailand that happen to be captured. And of all of the ones that have been released, there's one American child. Okay? Now, if that right there doesn't say to you that this system is screwed up, who's right and who's wrong, then there's nothing that's going to get to you because you're releasing 3 terrorists for a child, not necessarily an Israeli child, and almost definitely not an American child. That doesn't, if you're sitting on a college campus, I don't care what college campus you are, if you don't get that point, that this thing is a lopsided deal, that this is the kind of situation that we're in, that people are considering this progress, and that the side that you're supporting, Hamas, are a bunch of terrorists, then really you should not be in college. You should be in grade school. Or, you shouldn't be in this country again. The Hector and Mike travel experience coming to a school near you will be happy to send you. I got to tell you, as an aside, I saw a Saturday Night Live skit from a few years ago. It's the father taking his daughter to college. Be careful, be safe, yada, yada, yada. And the daughter's like, oh, Dad, don't worry. I'm only going to join ISIS. And they show up with the rocket launcher and the thing. And the father looks at the terrorist and says, be careful of my daughter. I mean, as stupid as that, as crazy and as ironic, the fact that several years later, you're in the same situation and you've got these kids on campuses that actually defend this thing. Just looking at what happens, three terrorists for one kid, and you don't look at that and say there's something wrong with that equation, and you don't look at it and say there's something wrong with that picture. I got no use for you. I really don't. I really
Yeah.
got no use for you if you're a college kid. And by the way, now we know why they want to get their loans forgiven, for Pete's sake.
Well,
They're not smart enough to sign a document. If they're not smart enough to figure that out, they sure as hell ain't smart enough to sign a loan document. That's for sure.
and you've got this this push for a ceasefire, and to be able to, one of the fears that's mentioned is by having this ceasefire, what you do is you allow the other people to regroup.
Right.
You're giving, they talk about humanitarian aid. Well, there was supposed to be a lot of humanitarian aid, and there was humanitarian aid that was given over to Palestinians over the years, and a lot of this money was being back used to create tunnels. A lot of this money
Right.
was, and it's the look, and I get this. I mean, look, I hope that there is some type of long lasting peace that can get created, but it's going to have to also require that you've got a group of people that no longer decide that terrorists are going to be the ones running their country. That it's not okay to have rocket launchers, in your home. It's not okay to have them in your schools. It's not okay to have
Hospitals.
these, in your hospitals. Yeah, that there is. I mean, and even the Red Cross itself. I mean, there's reports as to whether that the Red Cross should have known what was happening in some of these hospitals that they'd gone to visit, but just kind of remained silent on it.
Right.
And where the hell is the United Nations on this whole thing? Denouncing it, denouncing the terrorist attacks, denouncing what has happened, looking at it. I mean, I give credit to the Israeli government. They have done a very good job of documenting a lot of this and going back and showing reporters that here's all the film. Here's all these hours of film we have, and go see for yourself. And they've been recording themselves going into these tunnels in the hospitals and showing, look, here's where they have the arms, here's where they had the hostages, here's another tunnel that leads you into this other house. And so it's I think I told you, I think I maybe had mentioned it in one of our podcasts, but I'm reminded of my nephews, right? And it's like I asked them, I said, because they were trying to have a discussion with me about this particular issue. And I'm like, where the hell are you getting this information from? I said, oh, we saw it on TikTok. And I'm like, good Lord. I go, I enjoy TikTok. It's entertaining, but that shouldn't be your news source. Go pick up a newspaper, read a magazine, go do something and get yourself educated. Because and as I told him, I said, if you're going to try to go out and carry some type of discussion on this, just get yourself a little educated, because
Hmm.
TikTok isn't going to do it. It's I go, you're just watching propaganda.
It, it is propaganda, and it's mind-boggling to me that how much the liberal media has played into the poor Hamas thing, the poor Palestinian thing. I mean, even, and let's face it, let's get political here, and let's get personal here. I'm last weekend I'm in Sacramento, California, and I'm trying to go to somebody's wedding, and I can't get to the wedding because the California Democrat Party is having a state convention in Sacramento, and they've taken to the streets to do rolling protests in support of the Palestinians and Hamas.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, fortunately I had my Rhode Island driving skills and I drove through a blockade and was able to get to the church on time. Or,
Yep.
in your so I didn't catch the bouquet, which I was disappointed in. You could tell your bride that, but I still was able to get there on time. I mean, they were having a protest in support of a group of people that dropped out of the air into a concert, captured hundreds of people, killed hundreds of people, and are now trading hostages of a 9-year-old girl for three terrorist killers. Forget reading anything else. If you don't understand who's right and who's wrong on that, you got a chromosome loose.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about it. I mean, you seriously are missing a chromosome somewhere because it is that simple. It is
Well,
that
and it's
simple.
and the amount of painstaking that happened. Glad you mentioned the Democratic Party. The amount of painstaking that's happening even within Democrats themselves. I mean, the legislate the how was it, Israeli caucus, or the Jewish caucus that they have. I mean, they wrote a letter that, that they themselves, who were Democrats in the Democratic Party convention, they were being harassed. They were
Mm.
being
Right.
intimidated by their own members.
Right.
And it's like, and they're
That's
like,
what
well,
we're for. We're supposed to go harass them. I
it's
mean,
like,
what the hell are you people doing?
yeah, it's like they're like, we had to leave early because our members are being
Right.
harassed, and they were there with they were there with their families, and
Hmm.
so and you see this division. One of the things I'm really curious about is, what does the Jewish community, um, there's a great amount of individuals in Southern California, as there are in other parts of California, but we've got a very large group of Jewish individuals, just same as we have in New York and other places around the country. What do they do? What do they do politically now? Where is their home? You
Right.
know, are they having to reanalyze, Democrats in California, Democrats in across the nation who are saying, yeah, we should throw them into the sea, or, you know, the Holocaust wasn't that bad, because you're starting to question. I mean, these
Right.
protesters are starting to question whether the Holocaust really was that bad or existed, or whether we should, get rid of the Jews. That is what
Right.
they're out there saying.
It, I just find it unbelievable that they would be treated that way by their own Democrat Party. That they are so radical that they actually brought their state party convention to a halt.
Well, they
I
did, yeah.
mean, as crazy as the Republicans are in California, that has never happened. I mean, we had some decent battles. It's been better the last few years. We've had some decent battles in the past. I remember them well, and I haven't been here for, all that long, but it never reached that point where you shut it down. I mean, they
Right.
had to shut down their convention. The other part, which is interesting, what you said, is the flip side. You were talking about from the Jewish perspective. I saw an article, and it's interesting. One of the places that the Democrats are concerned is with the heavy Arab American community in a state like Michigan, which is a swing state. I'm not sure it's a swing state, but people believe it's still a swing state. And the fact that Biden has supposedly come out so strong for Israel that it's going to alienate Arab Americans in a place like Michigan, which is an important state. And there is a greater national political look at this thing as to where the Jewish community, where the Arab American community goes. But again, I just get down to, on this. It's to me, it's not complicated. It's very base. You're in a situation where people go to a concert, they get massacred, they get killed, they get mutilated, they get raped, they get captured, and now you're in a situation where you're considering it progress because you're releasing three terrorists for a 9-year-old. And if you can't understand there's few things in life that are black and white. If you can't understand the right and wrong of that, who's right, who's wrong, then there's no hope for you. I mean, I just really do believe it. It's that simple. There's no hope for you. There's no debate. If that's where we've reached at this point in time, that three terrorists released for one 9-year-old girl, not necessarily Israeli, but maybe from another country that was captured while attending a peaceful concert. If you don't understand the right and wrong of that, then you know you shouldn't be here.
Yeah, that
I
is.
very rarely see things that black and white, but this is one of those that I see that black and white. I really do.
It'll be interesting because I don't see this issue calming down anytime soon. I think the Israelis have been very clear that they're going to go out there, and their main job and their main focus is to destroy Hamas, and they're going to do everything in their power to do so. Um, we've seen how quickly they've been able to move around and push back Hamas. None of the arguments have been about. Hold on, let me